Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of JKL Media, where we're continuing to talk about 12 Monkeys, and we're almost done the first season. We've got one episode left to go, but today we're talking about four more episodes of the first season, and that includes the episodes Tomorrow, Divine Move, Shonin, and Paradox. And overall, I think that this was a pretty good suite of episodes. I think Tomorrow was probably the first kind of chair shuffling episode where not a lot happened, but it was just positioning things to happen in the next three episodes. And I really did enjoy the next three episodes, especially for Ramsey. His character really came to the forefront in these handful of episodes that we watched. And I think there were some really lovely callbacks to other episodes already, again in this episode as well, these episodes as well. So I quite enjoyed them all, and general thoughts from you two guys as well. Who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
Oh, I pointed at you. You pointed at me. Yeah, I agree. These four episodes were not only good but enlightening, and I love how they twisted things a little bit. They interwove some stories that I wasn't expecting. That was good. It's, again, very timey-wimey, and unless you are into time travel type things, I could see where it would be confusing, but to me, it blew my mind in some parts.
Oh,
yeah. I liked all four of them, and I had said last episode that I was starting to like the series a little bit more, but I was still seeing it not quite why this is liked by so many people.
Mm-hmm.
I think these four episodes, especially the back three, really show that they're not afraid. One, they're going through tons of story quickly.
Yep.
The idea of our heroes may not be heroes, our villains may not be villains, and forget about not meeting yourself in the past. They embrace the change, and this is very timey-wimey. As a Doctor Who fan, this is a great show of let's muck with the timeline, and yet it's all ending the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
In making decisions that I make this decision because I've always made this decision. Whether it's right or wrong, it's what I'm supposed to do to get us where we're supposed to be. And I just thought it was really well done.
Cool. So I'll start with you, Jesse, because I know you've mentioned in previous episodes that we've done that you're still not on board with Cole as a character, as a leading man. Based on what's happened in these episodes, what are your feelings on him as a character now?
I like him a lot more. And I think it's really interesting. I know this show lasts 4 years, and in the first season, he can't time travel anymore. What the hell? What? That was a shocking moment. No, I liked him a lot more, and I loved, jumping ahead, the scenes with his father. His father recognized him as an adult, and the emotion of, I've done a lot of bad things, but I'm trying to make up for him, and his father forgiving him and loving him. One of the things that can frustrate me when you're watching a show is, okay, we're not going to explain things, because if we explain things, the conflict is gone, and therefore we don't have a story, right? The 2-hour romantic comedy, if they're in a misunderstanding, it's done in 20 minutes. They're in love. There we go. I love the idea that they just go, look, you know what? you aren't going to believe this, but hey, your future son has been here and he's going to die unless we take your current son a little bit of his blood. Come see us, right?
Mm.
And now part of me he would go, what? You guys are crazy, but they do this. So I'm on board with Cole. I now understand he is definitely on a redemption arc. He feels guilty about everything he's had to do to survive, all the people he's hurt. And I think he is partly trying to get better for the sake of himself, but also I think because he's in love with Cassie, to redeem himself, to make him worthy of her.
Right.
And so I'm much more happy with him than I was.
Cool. And I especially like the episode with his father where he meets his younger self and his father. The actor who plays his father is Patrick Garrow, and he's one of those character actors. When you see him, you recognize him from other things. He's not quite on the same level of visibility as other character actors, but I recognized the guy as soon as I saw him. So I quite enjoyed him a lot. And I thought the symbology of when Cole injected himself with his younger version's blood was quite well done. And his rebirth in that scene where he blew out all the windows of the store and he's naked and everything, a little bit of the Terminator kind of vibe from that. But there's also the whole, as you mentioned, Jesse, redemption arc as well. And that was a rebirth moment for him. And it'll be interesting to see how Cole acts going forward from this particular moment. I just wanted to throw that in. Sorry, Karen, if I stole your thunder a bit there, but
no, not at all.
Yeah. What's your take on the Cole character during these episodes?
Yeah, I don't really consider him a quote unquote leading man, as it were. I think the job he's doing of co-carrying the series, I think he's doing a good job there, the actor. I've never had anything against the actor at all. But I do think he's dirty all the time, which bothers me. And I find that if he is going to be a romantic lead, it's going to take a lot more convincing. Now that he is stuck there and he doesn't time travel anymore, I'm assuming he's going to clean up a little more, which would help me in that endeavor. Jesse just gave 2 thumbs up. Yeah, I don't know what it is about me and seeing actors that are just dirty all the time, but it bugs me when they have matted hair like what's her name, Max? She has curly hair and it bothers me because I have super curly hair and I know if it was that dirty, it would make me crazy. So I think that's it, that it just makes me feel dirty to watch. And so that's a big part of my issues with him. So the actor, I'm sorry, Aaron, whatever his name is, Aaron Stanford.
Yeah.
I think he's doing a good job acting wise. I think he is doing quite well in the role that he has.
Cool. And we'll turn to Cassie next. And she's had a pretty interesting journey through these 4 episodes as well. And again, there's callbacks to previous episodes where in one episode, she's faced with the choice of, in this particular scenario, the person actually asks her to kill him, which was the other doctor that had brought or manufactured the virus again. And it was interesting to see they played that scene out quite well, where Cassie wavered. She was almost ready to pull the trigger, but in the end, she pulled back and just gave the guy money and told him to go hide or whatever. So I thought that was a nice callback to the scene where Cole just executed the guy with no issue. So the show is remembering its own continuity, which I like quite a bit. And I think that she's becoming hardened or more capable in conflicting scenarios where there's conflict, but she's not losing her humanity, at least not yet so far. I don't for her character, these 4 episodes, she probably changed the least, but there was certainly a strengthening of her character and a hardening of her character, but she didn't lose her core set of values yet. So I thought that played out quite well. And Karen, what did you think about her journey?
Yeah, I liked that she still, within her, she still contains her soul. She's retaining that empathetic part of herself. And we see that many times in these 4 episodes. She has a toy gun. She can't shoot the doctor, which is problematic for her because we see where that's going down Main Street, right? And I think she could see that too, that if he didn't hide, it would cause serious problems for her. But it was against her belief system. And so she just couldn't do it. I don't think that she wouldn't be able to pull the trigger if it was someone's life on the line. So I don't think she's taking into account that this guy living might cost millions and millions of lives, but it's not a tangible thing for her. So in that case, she can't do it. And I do think she's becoming much more capable. I like that part of her morality is not lying. And so she has taken that to the nth degree in just coming out and saying, okay, I'm not going to lie to you. We're doing time travel, so you got to come with us. She's really just coming out and saying it. We see that when she talks to the doctor with Cole's father, that she is pretty much just laying it out there. And I think that comes from not only her believing it, but the fact that Aaron has now started believing it. And so she's thinking, maybe it's not such a far-fetched thing, that maybe I can help other people believe in it. She doesn't want it to go wide, obviously, but these people are people that she needs in her corner. Mm-hmm. And I like that she has persuaded these 2 people that it is true, to a certain extent, at least. And she does have proof in some cases. And I really like that she is becoming a deeper person, a more, and I hate to say 3-dimensional because she was already pretty 3-dimensional, but I think she has gotten many more layers to her character.
Cool. Jesse.
Yeah, she's my hook to the series. As I've talked about before, I really have loved her in the Hallmark movies she's been in. I like her journey as a character. I wonder if sometimes ignorance is bliss. And I wonder as a character, I just wish I didn't know any of this was going on. I thought the episodes, because we're doing this in lumps, so I may be going back, but the episodes where they can't tell Cole he's going to die, because Cole sets that standard. You can't tell me. I thought was really a moral dilemma for her. I like her. I feel like she doesn't like her Aaron. I think she has true affection for him, but she's also using him. There's that scene where he says, I'm no longer, because of me involved with you, I'm no longer on the senator's campaign to run for president. I'm out of a job. And when the idea that making these decisions is disrupting everyone's life. But ultimately, if you can save the world from going through this pandemic, is it the right thing? You would absolutely hope so, right? The needs of the many. But short term, it's destroying her relationships and how she's going. I know you're going to get to this, but her interactions with the modern day Katrina was just amazing. And Barbara Suka, I don't know how to say her last name.
Sukawa, maybe?
Yeah. Out of the park. And her journey on these 4 episodes is, I think, one of my favorite things so far in the series.
Yeah.
Of her, she's the bad guy. There was a cure, but did she destroy it because she wants her daughter back? Did she destroy it because she was supposed to have destroyed it so that the loop that Cole would be back and she would see him? And there's that scene when she's in front of the core and she goes, no, Mr. Cole won't be coming back anymore, as it always was supposed to be. Really excellent writing and beautifully acting by her.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, her and Ramsey probably had the biggest arcs because they were always there, but they were background characters. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned in one of the previous episodes that I like Katerina quite a bit. I find her acting really well done, and her character is just a very interesting character. And we get to learn a little bit more about her. I want to talk about her and Ramsey next. And since we've already touched on her, we might as well continue to delve into that. And I think that I don't remember a lot of the series, and I have to say that scene between her and the Colonel from the other location, when she shot him, I was shocked. That was just like, I know she's obsessed or whatever, but that just blew me away. But she's totally bought in or believes that time travel is the cure for all the problems that her version of the modern day world is experiencing. And it's the parallels of other people in power and the things that they've done in the name of something that they believe in is easily transferable to the arc that she's going through. And actually for pretty well all the characters in this series, it's interesting how their life goals or objectives, how much they are colored by their personal relationships. This show is a masterclass in how people can rationalize things for themselves, and everyone is doing things because their rationalization is, but this is going to benefit everybody, but the truth is, it's really, they're doing it for themselves. And I find that tension between those two different forces quite delicious. And I think Katerina probably best exemplifies this because we've only had hints of it so far. And there's the fact that she did have a child, Hannah. That's been established now in these episodes. And I have to say that I don't know the actor, Barbara, how she looks and how she looked in real life. But the difference between how she looks in 2043 and how she looked in this episode, that Paradox episode, her younger version, was startling. And I don't know how they did it. Like, obviously this is way before de-aging makeup and that. So I have to assume that in the future episodes, they're doing some sort of makeup on her and lighting to make her look a lot older than she does, because she was near radiant in the Paradox episode when we saw her. And I also love how she handles, and the show does this all the time, is how when people meet people that haven't met each other before, or they have met but they don't say anything until the other person catches up to them. They do that quite a bit in these episodes, and I thought that was really well played here, because we know we have that moment when she meets him for we think the first time in 2043 when he's in the jail cell, and the way that the show is structured, it just lets you play back to those moments and reevaluate them. It's all comes down to your frame of reference in this show more so than ever. And I thought that she's a very complex character, and I just think that the actor is doing a fantastic job playing her. Jesse, since you already went there, why don't you just continue with what you were saying about Katerina?
Yeah, I think part of it is her different hairstyle versus it flowing the hair down versus it pulled up. It also, I think, much darker lighting in the lab. I think that helps.
Blue light.
Yeah. And yeah, we didn't know that she had seen him. And by having that flashback of, you have to keep it, you can't say, oh, I met you before, versus Jennifer's dad. He's like, oh, I did meet you guys. He's seen, but Katerina's playing it close to the vest. I thought the scene in the study with I can't think of his name now, but the one you were talking about,
Ramsey?
where she's just, not Ramsey, the
Colonel.
Yeah, the Colonel.
Yeah.
And just casually, no, we're going to do this. And he played that perfectly. I can't believe you shot me.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, we're just talking.
Yeah.
And she is definitely the end justifies the means.
Yep.
And now then I am really curious where the series is going to go, because we see, it appears that he had found a cure. That's the implication, is that he had found a cure for one of the mutations. So therefore you could have cured people and you could have built forward going forward. What I think now is that she doesn't want that, because she wants her daughter back. She is selfish. She wants them to be able to fix the timeline, so therefore she can have her daughter. I thought there was a really nice moment. She was smoking, and even though she was pregnant, because she was planning to have an abortion, then she decides to keep it, which we know is going to lead to tragedy. So that was a lovely scene. The way she's playing it with hope. So did she feel like, did she kill him so that the timeline won't change? Did she kill him because she thinks that she wants her daughter back? I don't know yet. And right now she looks like she's, in a lot of ways, the villain, because selfishly she stopped people from being healed. But I don't know, and I trust the show this far into it, that I don't think it's that simple. I think they will have to be a little bit more. And there is, Cassie so far is as close to being pure good, if we were talking about role playing.
Yep.
Katerina is gray. And so she is willing to morally make decisions for her, that for her ultimate good or for society's ultimate good, we don't know. But I love the fact that we have that debate, and the actress just knocks it out of the park.
Yep. Karen?
Yeah, I was just looking her up, but so she was in her late 50s, early 60s when the show came out.
Oh.
But I looked at pictures of her and she looks amazing. So I think that she was halfway between that young look and the older look. And I think that's why it works so much. They didn't have to use prosthetics on her for either role. They could just leave makeup off and kind of do a little makeup work for her in the older version, and do her up really good for the younger version. But I love her. If you do like I just did and look her up and look at images, she is gorgeous. And I think that there is such an ethereal quality to her. And even when she is hard in this show, I think there's something deeper about her. And I was just thinking about this, and I would like to think that you were comparing her and Ramsey because they both have some similar things happening to them in these episodes.
Yep.
And I would like to think that it's critical thinking versus critical feeling.
Right.
Where he is thinking about things. He's feeling things, obviously, but it's more of a plotting and planning type thing that he's doing. He's in it for the long game. And she is feeling things where if she was thinking critically in the future, she would know that she would not have her child back. That is not even she wouldn't exist the way she exists now.
Right.
And I think Ramsey, if he thought about it that way as well, he would know he's not going to have Elena and this child anymore. Their future would be obliterated and they would be on different paths. So in their mind, when Ramsey is keeping to the timeline and being okay with killing all these people because he'll have his family back, he already knows that's probably not going to happen because he went back in time. His wife was killed. He realizes if he stays on this path, it's not going to happen, but he's in it for the long game. He's doing the thinking. She, however, isn't really thinking about that concrete thing that the future will change if she literally changes the pandemic, and she's feeling all of it. And even in the past, she's doing a lot of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
She is wondering how this is all going to come together. Is she going to have this critical acclaim if she helps with this? And is she going to make her dad proud? Is she going to have this child and have it enhance her life? And even though she sees the evidence of her work, I think part of her is, whatever, if I help him, great, and I'll learn some things about what I'm doing, I might have a better life. And I really do feel like there are two sides of the same coin in this, but the acting between Barbara Sakawa and Cassie, the actress, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, Jesse, I'm terrible. They are electric when they're together, I think. That scene, like you said, where she's smoking in the kitchen of that bookstore, just so great between the two of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love her.
Using the bowl as an ashtray, like not asking, is it okay to smoke or anything?
Yeah.
It just,
this, even though it was 10 years ago, it's well past the time that smoking is uncool. So it would be well within Cassie's right to say, can you please not smoke in here? But she's just like, okay, there's bigger things going on.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 I think that, the Barbara Sakawa, she's just an amazing actor. And I just think that I can't remember what her arc is going forward, but I think out of the 3 or 4 leads, I think she's probably got the most interesting one to me. It'll be interesting to see where she goes. And maybe just because I gravitate more to science-based characters, that's probably why. But it'll be interesting to see where that plays out. And what's really been gratifying for me is see Kirk Acevedo. He's probably had more to do. He has had more to do in this series than he had in his entire run with Fringe in this first season. And he's gotten to show quite the range. And it's been very fascinating, Jesse, to see him as the future moral compass, how he's flipped when he finds out that he's got a son. And it really changes his dynamic in the show. And he goes from being Cole's conscience to just focused on saving his family. And it's also answered one of the questions I had about the series. It's going to be interesting how they're going to work with this time travel stuff if only Cole is the only one that can time travel. And it's one of those hand wave moments where Ramsey takes one injection and he can time travel. So
yeah, but he can't come back. And
yeah, so we'll have to see how that plays out with other characters time traveling, because I'm sure that's got to be a thing. It has to be, because otherwise there's only so much story real estate that you can navigate from 2015 to 2043 for certain characters, say Cassie and the Doctor, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But anyhow, with getting back to Ramsey, I just think that Kirk Acevedo also, the only problem I have with his character is sometimes he's hard to understand because he's got such a raspy voice. His dialogue gets muffled at times, so it's a bit difficult to understand everything that he's saying. But I just think that he's got an innate like street survivor vibe about him that really works well for the character. And I really enjoyed his arc in these episodes. And the stuff that and we find out that he's the witness, and I'm going on, is he really the witness? Is he the witness? I don't know. I have a feeling that that's going to play out differently than we think right now, but we'll see. So anyhow, your thoughts on him?
So I absolutely adored his storyline. In the behind the scenes podcast that they did for The Last of Us, the HBO series that was just out, slight spoilers, there is a scene in the very last episode where the hero Joel has to make a decision on protecting his charge, his quote unquote daughter, or possibly saving the world. And they said that when they did focus groups, people who weren't parents chose you've got to protect the world. Parents chose he absolutely did the right thing.
Right.
As you can see, I'm making the connection here. Becoming a parent changes him.
Yep.
And where he is all about, I'm not going to, if you change the timeline, I lose my son. My son is not born. I'm okay with losing my life, but I can't let you take away, especially after his love is shot and died.
Yep.
He's incredibly bitter. His arc of going to the past and wow, what that scenes in the jail, right, were just amazing. Just the slow thought of just getting his butt kicked. And then whoever and I'm a little unclear on who this person that his mentor,
mysterious lady.
Yeah, mysterious lady is, but him sending them books and talking about, and then him finding himself was great. Now, I do have questions on, okay, he didn't have a social security or anything, but then when he got out of prison, were they able to fake all that? Okay, but let's just not worry about all that.
The mysterious lady looked after that.
Yeah, had all that connection. Yeah. But the idea of him adjusting to that new timeline, adjusting to the fact that I may never see my son again, but I know what I have to do to get things going.
Mhm.
And I do another thing that was lovely is the scene where the young Cole, right, is an orphan and he has to go to the Child Protective Services.
Yep.
And he meets Ramsey.
Yeah.
And Cole's like, it's going to be okay. And that the beginning of their friendship, that's how long they've been together, which makes it even more poignant that they're on opposite sides.
Mhm.
Similar to the Silver Age Superman and Lex Luthor. Clark and Lex were friends till he lost his hair, but there's other things going on there.
Mhm.
Well,
So, yeah.
in some of the canon he does,
Yes.
but no, let
Yes.
me not go there.
Yeah, so it was absolutely an amazing arc, and I agree. It was such a surprise, Lou and Karen, that, okay, he's going to be this. Ramsey is just the silent sidekick and the moral compass and his friend, and all of a sudden you get his arc, and now then he takes lead in a couple episodes. Was
Mhm.
really a lovely surprise.
Yep. Karen.
Yeah. I have to say, Ramsey, wow, what a descent into madness his life has become.
Mm.
I do think that seeing his girlfriend, wife, I'm assuming just partner,
Mhm.
dead, shot by the people from the facility, that busted a screw loose, I think, in him. And he does even admit, look, I know it was a mistake, but I'm not going to let it go.
Mhm.
And I don't think he holds the lieutenant. I don't know if he's a lieutenant, but Hawkins? No, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was Hawkins. Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't hold him accountable, but he holds the whole machine. And I'm not talking about the actual physical machine, but that whole machine there at the facility, all the people, how it's run. He holds all of them responsible. And I think not knowing what Cole is going through, he just he's seeing the surface of what goes on there. I feel like he was an add-on. Like Cole said, if I can't bring him, then I'm not going to help you out. And in that way, he's not really let in on what's going on there. So it's easy for him to blame them. And the fact that he goes in there and sets everything on fire, he burns that whole structure to the ground, literally and figuratively. That's all of their intel. And then he goes through more when he goes back to the 80s. He gets put in jail, and we know he goes through a lot of bullying. I do appreciate that he read Sun Tzu and some other books about declaring war, but in a different way. He uses his brain, which I don't think he's dumb in the future, but I don't think he's as smart as he becomes after reading those books and learning more about things where he didn't really have access to that in the future.
Yeah. I love that scene when he says to that giant inmate, he says, "I've killed you with words," or without lifting a finger, or something like
exactly.
That was
good.
A great scene.
Yeah. And I know it's played because they need to get on with that scene, but I would have liked to see, how did he prove that guy was in with the guards? Yeah. Because all he does is tell everyone that he's like a snitch for the guards.
Did you have subtitles on for that? Because I didn't.
I did.
I didn't know what he said during those scenes. But...
Oh, closed captioning. Yeah, he says to the group that the big guy has been a snitch for the guards this whole time, and they turn against him immediately. And you do also see the guards looking shiftily.
Yeah.
I liked that about him. And then they show how he has been getting more and more into this background of the virus, and almost one of the architects of the pandemic. And that is all set into motion by Jennifer, who says, "Oh, we've been through a lot," and sets up that whole thing. And at that point, he realizes, I must have time traveled. And so that sets that whole thing in motion. You can see his brain whirring a lot of the time. He meets up with Goins several times in the past and in the quote unquote present in 2015, where Goins is, I know you from somewhere, and he denies it. And I think to myself in those situations, if I met someone or saw someone once 25 years ago, I wouldn't remember them now.
No. Yeah, that's a conceit you have to go with. Yeah.
At first, he doesn't recognize him, which I thought was believable. And I do think it was a pretty big moment in Goins' life as well, to watch a guy kill another guy in front of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get all that. I'm buying into the whole thing. Again, like I say, I didn't play solitaire while I was watching it. I didn't do puzzles. I was honed in. I don't do that with B5 either, just so you guys know.
How about Castle?
I did sometimes, yes. I have to admit, I did sometimes.
Fair.
Yeah, and I just linked a thing to you about alignment, and I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
For the main characters in this show, and since we're talking about Ramsey, what do you think their alignment would be? I think he would be chaotic evil.
I think that every character can play any one of these alignments. There's Karen pointed to a link where we show the
D&D alignment.
So you got lawful, good. So you've got lawful, neutral, chaotic against good, neutral, and evil. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was going to make the point that the strength of the show is that a lot of times we watch shows and you'll see a character that's been acting one way, and then this, for the convenience of the story, will flip and do something totally against their nature that in no way has been established in prior storylines for that character. But here, and like we've talked about how well the show handles time travel, but the other thing that it does really well, which is more important actually, is how it handles character motivations. Because we've seen, like Ramsey, for instance, he's totally flipped, but we get his motivations as to why he's flipped. They just don't have him flip for the sake of advancing the plot. And I think this is actually, to me, is the secret sauce of why this show works, is we understand why a character who acted one way for a string of episodes can flip and go from good to bad or bad to good or in the middle because of what's happened to them personally. And we understand their motivations, and we're emotionally invested in this character's arc for that particular string of episodes. And I think that's why this show is working for me, not just because it's making great callbacks and using the time travel formula to give us like those nice scenes with Cole and his older and younger selves with his dad. That's all really fun stuff, but the meat and the heart of this show is how it handles character motivations and allows us to say, okay, this character has totally flipped, but I understand why. And I think that's what I think your chart. I think any character in this series could move across all of those gradations as long as we get to see why they're doing it. And if you look at like where Ramsay is at the end of this string of episodes as to where he was at the beginning, is he's a totally different character. Like you said, like he's evolved from a street fighter to now he's a chess master, which is really cool to see. And he's totally dressing differently and everything because of his association with this mystery group that we still don't have a name for, but and it does cool things like with Jennifer, whose arc hasn't been that much different. She's probably would be chaotic, I think.
Definitely.
She's always chaotic. We do find out the interesting revelation that her father knew that she hadn't killed those people. So we have to wonder why he's done what he's done to her. And I'm sure that we will find out in future episodes. And it was interesting that she gave Ramsay that medallion. And I don't know what that symbol means. I haven't looked it up. I'm sure it's referencing something. But then the tall man, Tom Noonan's character, or the pallid man as they list him in the show, he also has that medallion. So how did that medallion get from him to Jennifer to Cole? I'm sure we'll find out. And I didn't understand why they joined those two medallions in that.
So he could be the witness to that effect of the two things coming together and exploding. Yeah.
Okay. But what does that
I don't know yet.
Okay.
But I'm assuming that's what they mean by the witness.
Okay.
That he saw that.
Yeah. So it's cool to find out that because of Ramsay's arc, we now know why the pallid man and those guys always seem to be a step ahead of Cole and Cassie. So I thought that was a nice revelation as well. Revelation, I should say. And I think
I did want to mention Jennifer has been the least interesting character.
But right her now, acting is really good, which compensates for it. But
but right now she's just been the crazy person.
Yeah,
right?
Chaotic.
And so I'm hoping a little bit more from her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do love that, as you talked about, right? We're not. They're explaining why these people are changing, and not just for the use of it's convenient for us to change.
Yeah.
No, they are really showing a good story of where this is happening. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was great.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to bring up this chart, you make a really good point about it, was that Ramsay goes from essentially lawful good to chaotic evil, from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
And I would argue with you that Cassie will never move on this chart. She's always going to be lawful good. I think they will not move her on this chart.
Be interesting to see if that's true or not. But you could be right, but
that could encompass a lot of things. But you notice she has a strong morality.
Yeah,
I don't think she'd move from lawful at the very least, because that doesn't mean going along with the law. That means going along with a moral compass, always doing what's right.
So let me pose this question to you then. What if they show a story arc where she and Cole have a period of time where they start a relationship and they get into a good domestic lifestyle, but then somebody comes along and kills Cole or something like that? Do you think that she's going to stay lawful good? Or
I
do you think
and
she's going to go out for revenge? I don't know.
I do. I don't think she has it. And I'm not saying there's a fault to her character, but I do think that she wouldn't go off the deep end at that point. I think she would use it as an impetus to do what's right. And again, that is lawful good. Whether that is stopping whoever killed him, even if that's a revenge type thing, I think stopping whoever killed him would be stopping evil. And so to me, that would mean lawful good, that she's going along with the universe in saying, I'm always going to stick by my morals, and killing someone is not against lawful good. If that doesn't, it's more
depends
of
on your motivation.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think she'll never stray from that lawful good position. That's just my...
That is an interesting thing or item to hang our hats on to watch going forward. Definitely. Because I think this show is entirely set up to subvert those types of expectations. But we'll see. But in every story, you do need a character that's like a constant. If we're going to reference things like Lost, the constant, and you need a character like that so that there's something a center for the everything else to revolve around. We'll have to see if they stick with that, because if she wavers in her beliefs, that is problematic for this whole conceit of the story, because then it's the problem with time travel, like we're seeing a lot of movies like with the metaverse stuff, and that is that it takes all the tension out of the story, because you're watching this and says, oh, they can just roll the dice, change up the storyline, and correct this problem. And that's the big issue that we have going with this story or this series, that we'll have to see how they handle that. Though I suspect if based on what we're seeing so far, because they're explaining character motivations, if anybody changes, I don't think it's really going to be a big shock or deterrent for our enjoyment of the series, because they're doing such a good job of explaining motivations. But right. I'm glad that you brought up this chart, and this is something that we might want to print out,
bookmark it,
print out and use as a tracking device as we're watching these character arcs going forward, because it'll be interesting. Because then we should plot out where every character is on the chart at a given point in the series to see how they change going forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fantastic that you brought that up. Thank you.
Just in this part of the season, he's gone from lawful good to chaotic evil, which is a huge change.
Yep.
And that only works because of how they've set everything up. And they did it in one episode.
Yep.
One, which is, I think that takes a lot of skill.
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw it open at this point. We can talk about Jennifer if we want, as I think we've touched on her. She hasn't changed too much. I did like her walk down the boardroom table, because she's so short and she had those high heels on. That was and she had that short dress on. That was fun. And she gets good dialogue. Like she's kind of like the Joker. Like she reminds me a lot of the Joker from the Nolan movies, Heath Ledger Joker. So she gets all the great dialogue, and she takes worn lines of trope dialogue and then she flips it on its head in the last line or whatever. I quite enjoy that. Oh, what was the other point I was going to make before I throw it open? Oh, it'll come back to me. Jesse, is there anything else that you wanted to mention at this point?
I do want to echo, I love the idea that she bought the company. But that's a fantasy for me. That just to be that big of a jerk to people that have been horrible to me. I now own this SOB, and by the way, you're fired. So I appreciate that scene. Yeah, I love the idea that as we're tracking this, the characters are changing and what they're doing. And it appears that the showrunner has a pretty good grasp of, I picture flowcharts and designs and everything going, okay, here's what we're doing. It is, and another thing that I really want to applaud is I don't feel like there's a lot of filler in these episodes. As we talked about, You've got to pay attention. I did go back and watch a couple episodes again. I had time and I really enjoyed them. So yeah, I'm really glad you picked this.
Oh, cool. Great.
I think Shonin is one of those episodes that benefits from a rewatch because there's so many moving parts with Ramsey in that episode. And I can say with certainty that at least this season, I don't think there's a huge weakness in the story writing. And I think even from the beginning, they were setting things up, but they did it at a pace to which we could follow it, but we also got a lot out of it.
Yes.
From the very beginning, which is when it comes to sci-fi, world building is usually much more boring. That's why a lot of science fiction genre shows are, the first season is just, it's a slog.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think they did a really good job. I think overall, the rules they've set up for time travel make sense, and they seem to be sticking by them.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. I would say more than other shows. And like you said, Jennifer, wow. In that last episode where she knows she has all the controlling shares, and so she's going to waltz in, like literally waltz in and take over the company. By the way, those were Louboutins, those heels, because they had a red sole on them.
Okay, whatever that means.
Very expensive shoes.
Oh, okay.
Very. And we know that she is the head of this group, the Daughters.
Yep.
I also appreciated the way that we see them at different times and how they looked different. Everybody that we see in all different time zones.
Yeah.
So even down to the costumes, the makeup, everything puts you in the mind of these people, absorbs you. And I know this show came out 10 years ago. So one of the things that, and it was probably the only thing that really took me out of the show, was me trying to do the calculations of how old they were and whether the makeup worked. And I was like, she's got to be really old. And I was like, oh, no, she's probably just in her 50s, because this was 10 years ago, 2015 in the show. It wasn't 2023 where they should have been older than they were.
Yeah. 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 I think the only time the weakest makeup instance for me was with the Leland Goines character, who in 2017,
87,
or no, yeah, in 87. But I'm and in our when the show's in its current time, which
15, no, 17.
He's
you're
bald.
Right. Yeah.
So when we go back to
the
Tokyo,
wig was terrible.
We're in that wig.
Terrible.
Yeah.
In fact, I was like, I didn't recognize him at first, and I was like, who is this guy? And then when I realized, I'm like, this looks horrible.
It does. It's definitely like an Arrow wig. On the show Arrow, their wigs were terrible.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think wigs have come a long way in the last 10, 15 years.
Definitely.
Because, that just did not look good. They should have went with a brush cut or something. I don't know, but it was just...
I can't excuse that, though. Even 10 years ago, they had better wigs than that.
Yeah. So that was the worst instance for me. I also wonder how this show would have played for me pre-COVID versus post-COVID, because the pandemic thing is it's always been there. It's such a big SF trope, but to actually have lived through one, it does give you a different perspective. You're much more open to concepts, I think, because of having lived through something like that, and with COVID. So it's an interesting dynamic that unfortunately for us, we can't experience because we've not watched the show before COVID. So that's something that we've missed. Now, other people out there who's listening to this, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on this. So please feel free to chime in if you've watched the show before and you're watching again with us.
Yeah, there are times where it almost physically hurts because we know how terrible a pandemic is.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear from someone who saw it before the pandemic and now kind of have a different feeling about it.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing I'm worried about is, as you mentioned earlier, Karen, the show's gone through a lot of story already. And this is 4 seasons long. I'm just wondering if there's any exhaustion, either from the writers, from the creating staff, or from us, as to how many times we can handle the roll of the dice, setting up new scenarios. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward. And I do that the show keeps dropping new breadcrumbs for new things to come. We've got this society with the elusive or the mysterious lady, the alluring lady, that we still don't know a lot about. What's their role in all of this?
Who's her father?
Who's her father? Who's there's another character's parentage that I was wondering about. Oh, Cole's mother. What's her deal?
Yes.
What's her deal?
Yeah, we don't know, do we?
Yeah, but there's got to be something going on there that when a character does this in a fiction story goes away, there's always a reason. And we have to find out what that reason is. And so that'll be interesting to see as well. But we've got 1 episode left to go in the first season. And the plan is we're going to watch the last episode of this season and the first episode of the next season to see how big of a switch there is between these 2 seasons, to see where the show's going. I guess the other thing, that just reading episode summaries, I have to chuckle every time that this episode is setting it up like, this is it. This is the final thing that's going to happen. But then, there's another episode after that one.
Yeah, so, exactly. Like, what?
Yeah. They attempt a final confrontation.
Yeah.
But next week, guess what? There's another confrontation yet to come. Yeah, so it's been a fun show, and I definitely think that this is definitely a binge show.
Yes.
I would think that under the conditions of its original airing, it would have been frustrating to have to go a week to wait between episodes. Because of the nature of the storytelling, it works better this way, I think, in dumps like this. Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying watching it. It's always like when you're doing these podcasts, there's always, I've got to watch another episode. I can't believe a week's gone by and I haven't watched the episode yet, blah, blah, blah. This one, once you watch the first one, you're back into it, and it's, the next 3 went really fast kind of thing. So I'm definitely enjoying it.
Oh, I absolutely agree. This has been a lot of fun. And so, great choice.
Great.
Agreed.
All right. Any final words, Jesse or Karen?
No, just
all good.
Really loving it.
Yeah, me too.
Fantastic. All right. So with that, folks, we're going to step out of the time continuum for a while, and we'll be back in a week our time, but it could be just seconds for you if you wish listen to the next episode. We can be found on the internet and other places. And Karen, where can people find you?
I am at Elveria on the various social media sites, and my blog is alliesstuff.com.
Very good. Jesse?
I am at Jesse Jackson, DFW on Twitter. You can hear me talk music on Set Listing Bruce, and I hope you guys are checking us as we talk Babylon 5, because it's getting hot. It's getting heavy. We're up to halfway through season 3.
Cool. All right. And of course, you can find me on Lou's Reviews on YouTube, where you'll find this podcast under the JKL media banner. And we, as Jesse mentioned, we do the Babylon 5 podcast. I also have writer interview podcasts I do, and the Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma. And with that, we're going to splinter off into our own lives again and get back to our day-to-day stuff. And until next week, when we get back together again, everybody, stay safe and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wear a mask.
Bye. Yes.
Wear a mask. Yeah. And scene.